Good morning. Today we're going to talk about how I ended up here. Yeah. So, I'm Suze. Welcome to my witchy homestead, or welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about the how we got here and the why we are here. And my why. I was watching a Roots and Refuge video. I don't know if it was a new one or an old one, but she talked about her why she is doing this. And one of her pieces of advice was to know your why and remember your why, so that when times are hard and you're swamped and you're swimming in tomatoes, you remember what you're doing this for. So that's kind of why I'm making this video, is so that I can remember what the heck my why is. Like, yeah, it's always in the back of my mind, but now it's out. Now it's out. So we're going to start with how we got here and then move on to the why. So I've been in the witchy space for a very long time. Man, those early 2000s websites were wild. For any like witchy stuff, any kind of like niche thing, it was weird. It was a weird time. And I might have just aged myself, but that's okay. So I've been in the witchy space for a really, really long time, and I dropped it for a long time, and then when my girls were born, I picked it back up. I was looking for something that could just be for me, something that was mine, and I came across a post on Pinterest that said something to the effect of, you don't have to be Wiccan to be witchy, and it clicked. Like, I hadn't looked at witchy stuff in years, since prior to 2010. So that was weird that it just randomly popped up. That all being said, is I got back into it, and there is a link between being witchy and the herbalism. Because in the witchy sphere, you use herbs and their energetics, and in the herbalism, you use herbs and their energetics just differently. So there is some overlap. So I did know about herbalism before. Long explanation for that, eh? So last school year, not the one that just ended in June, but the prior one. So we are talking last summer at this point. So the 2023-2024 school year, my kids were so sick, and I was so sick. So last summer, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get ahead. I don't know what that was. I'm going to get ahead of it, and I'm going to make some fire cider. Okay, cool. So I was looking up recipes for fire cider, and I ended up coming across, somehow, this woman making pickles, and she water bath canned them, and I looked at that and went, oh, I can do that. And then a day or so later, I came across her again, and she was making tomato sauce, like pasta sauce. It was a roasted tomato pasta sauce, and once again, she water bath canned it, and I went, oh, I could do that. And then I put it in the back of my brain. The fire cider and the sauce and the pickles went into the back of my brain. All of it. I ended up going to the grocery store one random Tuesday. Husband got home early because he's gone. Like, he works. He's gone all day. He was home for whatever reason on a random Tuesday really early, and I had to go to the store because we were out of some things. And I walked in, and right at the front of the store, they have all these massive cases of tomatoes, and of course the jars with it, right? And they had peppers, an eggplant, and some other things, I don't remember. And then these dinky little baskets of cucumbers, mosquito, dinky little baskets of cucumbers and jalapenos and squash. They're only like this big. They're tiny. There's a lot in them, but they're tiny compared to like these, massive boxes of tomatoes, right? So I went and did my shopping, got home, and by the time I walked in my front door, something had clicked and went, oh, tomatoes, roasted red pepper sauce, or roasted tomato sauce. And I looked at my husband, I put those bags on the counter, I'm like, I gotta go back. And I went back and I bought the tomatoes, I bought the cucumbers, bought jalapenos, I bought onions, I bought everything I needed for this sauce. And I bought the jalapenos because jalapenos. And I bought the cucumbers because pickles. And I did all the things and I loved it. But it wasn't until I was making my fire cider that I'm shoving, you know, some of these jalapenos in the jar, and I'm shoving onions, and I'm sitting there going, and garlic, and I'm like, I could grow these. Like, I could legitimately grow these. And it clicked. And then I ended up going down a rabbit hole of gardening, YouTube, and TikTok. And that's kind of where I found the homesteading, which is the herbalism and the cooking and the canning and the gardening and the kind of all the things I was wanting to do. So I spent, I think this was mid-August, it's almost a year ago, mid-August, down a rabbit hole, and then just stayed there, and we are here now. So I looked at my husband and went, I want a garden. How can we do it? He went, I don't know, I'll figure it out for you. So we went through, I went through so many different plants, like in my little notebook. I think I discussed this in a different video. I had a notebook. I was designing different gardens, and, you know, how do I get as much garden space in as little space as possible, because it is going on the driveway. Why the driveway, you might ask? Well, you see, it's the sunniest spot, and it also doesn't take up any space from my kids to play. So driveway it is. The thing I didn't factor in was tree growth, but that's okay. That's okay. We are fine with that, which is the problem with my front bed here. My experimental garden is it got more sun last year, and then the trees grew. Anyway, so that's why my garden is on the driveway, because it is the space I had available to me. So I was trying to configure the best way I could in the least amount of space I could use. And eventually my husband made me the garden that I have. And I am so grateful, because I don't think I'd be able to do this. And he really enjoys woodworking. And so this was just a simple, basic project that he can have a win, right? So he did that, filled it with dirt, filled it with plants. I am so happy with how it looks right now. There is still a lot of work to do, but I'm so happy. So that's kind of how leaves are falling off the trees already. I think a squirrel knocked a chunk off. Anyway, so that's kind of how we got here. With a little bit of a why. But let's talk about my why. Why do I want a garden? Why do I want a homestead? Why do I want a YouTube? God, that is such a good question, isn't it? I want a garden because I want to cook. I want my skills as a cook to expand. And as, you know, I have things in my garden that I now need to cook with. I have to figure out what to do with. And that is like exciting to me. So if I have the garden, I will expand my cooking. If if I have the garden, I will expand specifically my nutrition, hopefully. And if I have my garden, it gives me something to do. You know, like it gives me somewhere to putter when I'm having a hard day. And I get to look at the flowers and all the tomatoes and remember that, you know, things are good. And it's helped me so much with my mental health. This whole switch to homesteading has helped my mental health so much. So now we have to focus on physical health for myself, mostly myself. But if in the meantime we are now as a family eating better, eating less junk, eating you know, more homemade, homegrown stuff, that is great. So my why for homesteading and gardening is to be able to produce the things in the amounts that I need to be able to cook and preserve, because I want to cook and preserve. So, garden. The herbalism thing has been reignited. I never really made anything before, but even when I made the fire cider last summer, your shoes are on your wrong feet. So my why is to improve my cooking skills, improve my health. Oh, fire cider. Even after making the fire cider last year, I was so afraid to use it. So afraid to use it. You know, that's what I'm trying to get away from. Like, I was scared to use the spaghetti sauce that I made. I was scared to eat the pickles. I also did pickled jalapenos, which I have 1 jar left of. So I want to try to replace as much grocery store products as I can. I said this in my new homesteading halfway through video. I can't replace everything, but if I can replace bits, so I'm not afraid. We did eventually use the pasta sauce. We did eat the pickles. The pickled jalapenos, I think I made 6 jars, and we have 1 left. We don't use those as frequently as I thought we did, but I did use my products. I never used the fire cider, but that's okay. I will be making stuff, and I'm not going to be afraid this year. So that's a cool why. Why YouTube? YouTube. I want to document, and I want to be able to document what I'm doing, so that I remember next year when things are rough, how good it's going to be. You know, I talked about this in my halfway video. The seed starting. I hate seed starting, but I need to remember that starting a seed ends up in a plant that looks beautiful. So, reminders. Also, I want to be able to share my garden with friends and family that aren't here. Like, my friends have been asking me for updates on my garden since I started, like, talking about it. So now they can see it. That's really cool. They can see it, and they don't have to be here. So it's a little bit of record keeping, a little bit of show off, a little bit of here we are. I have tried YouTube in the past. And I've quit right about now. After a few videos, I quit. I don't want to quit this time. I don't want to quit the herbalism. I don't want to quit YouTube. I want to keep going on my garden. I want to keep going. So maybe if I put my why out there on the internet, like I am now, and I keep putting my garden on the internet, and I have something to look back on, I will keep going. Because I am notorious for hobby jumping. Even though homesteading is multiple hobbies in one, I am notorious for hobby jumping. And this homesteading kind of gives me that option, because I don't have, yeah, it's great. So, there's my video. There's my how we got here and my why. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for spending time with me, and I will see you in the next one. Please like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day.